For most of aviation history, bombers followed a simple logic. Bigger meant safer. Higher meant untouchable. Faster meant survival. The B-2 Spirit was built to reject every one of those assumptions. It doesn't rely on speed. It doesn't rely on altitude. And it doesn't rely on armor. Instead, it relies on something far more unsettling: absence. The B-2 was designed not to fight the enemy, but to never appear in the enemy's mind at all. When radar operators scan the sky, they expect patterns, angles, reflections, predictable returns. The B-2 gives them none, not because it is invisible in a science fiction sense, but because it was engineered to collapse the very rules radar depends on. Every line, every curve, every surface on the B-2 exists for one reason only: to deny detection. This is why it looks wrong. No tail, no fuselage in the traditional sense, no visible distinction between wing and body. The B-2 is not shaped like an airplane. It is shaped like a problem radar was never meant to solve. From above, it resembles a shadow. From the front, almost nothing. From the side, a geometry that refuses to give answers. This wasn't an aesthetic choice. It was a psychological one. Engineers understood something most weapons designers ignore. War is decided long before the first weapon is fired. It is decided in planning rooms, in assumptions, in confidence. The B-2 exists to destroy confidence. Because when an enemy cannot see you, they cannot prepare. And when they cannot prepare, they cannot deter. Unlike traditional bombers, the B-2 does not announce its presence. There is no warning, no buildup, no escalation curve. One moment, the sky is empty. The next, targets thousands of kilometers away are gone. This is not power through force. This is power through inevitability. The most unsettling part is not what the B-2 can destroy, but where it can appear from. It can take off from the continental United States, cross oceans, penetrate the most heavily defended airspace on Earth, deliver precision strikes, and return home without refueling in hostile territory. To the defender, this breaks a core assumption of warfare. That distance provides safety. Distance means nothing to the B-2. Borders mean nothing. Early warning systems mean nothing. Even layered air defenses mean nothing, because all of them are built on detection. And the B-2 was built to erase detection from the equation. But stealth alone is not what makes the B-2 dangerous. What truly breaks the rules is what it carries. Unlike smaller stealth aircraft, the B-2 is not limited to light payloads. It can carry massive conventional ordnance or nuclear weapons. This dual capability transforms it from a tactical asset into a strategic one. The B-2 does not just strike targets. It reshapes strategic thinking. Any adversary must assume that, at any moment, their most protected facilities are already vulnerable. Command bunkers, weapon sites, critical infrastructure. Nothing is too far. Nothing is too hidden. This creates a permanent psychological pressure. Not fear of attack, but fear of uncertainty. Because you don't defend against what you cannot see, you can only hope it never comes. Even the way the B-2 is flown reflects this philosophy. Its pilots operate in near silence. No aggressive maneuvers. No dramatic dogfights. The aircraft does not dominate the sky by force. It dominates by not interacting with the battlefield at all. It passes through it like a thought. And perhaps the most disturbing detail is this: the B-2 is not new. Its core design dates back decades, which raises an uncomfortable question. If this is what was revealed to the public, what exists beyond it? Because stealth is not static. It is a moving threshold, and the B-2 was never meant to be the end. It was meant to be proof that the rules themselves could be broken, proof that visibility is optional, that detection is negotiable, that dominance no longer requires presence. The B-2 Spirit is not a bomber in the traditional sense. It is a message that says, the battlefield no longer begins where you think it does. And that message was received long before the first bomb ever fell. When the B-2 Spirit was first revealed, many analysts dismissed it as impractical, too expensive, too complex, too specialized. On paper, they were right. Each aircraft cost more than an entire fleet of conventional bombers. Its maintenance requirements were extreme. Its stealth coating demanded precision and patience. But those criticisms misunderstood the purpose of the B-2. The B-2 was never designed to be efficient in the traditional sense. It was designed to be decisive. Conventional bombers fight wars of attrition. The B-2 was built to fight wars of permission. Permission to enter airspace. Permission to strike first. Permission to end a conflict before it expands. This is why the B-2 does not rely on escorts. It does not need fighter screens or suppression waves. In past wars, bombers arrived after air defenses were destroyed. The B-2 arrives before that destruction happens. It opens the door. During its first combat missions, the effect was immediate and unsettling. Targets deep inside defended territory were hit without warning. No radar alerts. No interception attempts. Defense systems functioned exactly as designed. They simply never saw the threat. This forced a re-evaluation of what air superiority actually meant. Air superiority was no longer about controlling the sky. It was about removing the sky from the equation entirely. The B-2 did not challenge enemy fighters. It bypassed the concept of fighters altogether. And this bypass created a strategic asymmetry that could not be corrected quickly. Radar networks could be upgraded. Missiles could be improved. But the core problem remained unchanged. Stealth is not about technology alone. It is about geometry, physics, and probability. The B-2 reduces detection to a statistical anomaly. It doesn't eliminate risk. It makes risk unreliable. And in warfare, unreliable systems are worse than broken ones. A broken system can be replaced. An unreliable one creates hesitation. Operators hesitate to trust their screens. Commanders hesitate to escalate responses. Decision-makers hesitate, and hesitation is fatal in conflict. This psychological disruption is the B-2's true weapon. The bomber itself may never be seen, but its influence spreads everywhere. Every defense planner must now ask the same question. What am I missing right now? That question has no satisfying answer. The B-2 also changed how power is projected globally. Before it, power required presence, bases, allies, forward deployment. The B-2 made presence optional. A nation could strike anywhere on Earth, without staging forces nearby, and without revealing intent in advance. This compressed the timeline of war. Conflicts that once required weeks of buildup could begin in hours, and, just as importantly, they could end before escalation became inevitable. This capability altered deterrence itself. Deterrence used to be visible. Troops on borders, fleets at sea, bombers on alert. The B-2 introduced invisible deterrence. An adversary never knows if the deterrent is already overhead. That uncertainty forces restraint, not because of fear of destruction, but because of fear of miscalculation. Yet the B-2 is not invulnerable. Its power lies in balance. Stealth works best when rare, when unexpected, when enemies are unsure how often it can be used. This is why so few B-2s exist. They are not meant to saturate the sky. They are meant to shape behavior. A single mission can influence years of strategic planning, and that influence extends beyond bombs and targets. The B-2 changed how engineers think. After it, design priorities shifted. Speed became secondary. Maneuverability became situational. What mattered most was signature management. How sound travels. How heat disperses. How shapes interact with invisible waves. The B-2 forced aviation into a quieter, colder, flatter future. A future where dominance is measured, not by what can be seen, but by what cannot be detected. And perhaps the most unsettling realization is this. The B-2 does not need to fly to achieve its effect. Its existence alone is enough. As long as it exists, every radar sweep carries doubt. Every defense plan has gaps. Every assumption is provisional. The B-2 spirit broke the rules of bombing. But more importantly, it broke the rules of expectation. And once expectations are broken, they never fully return. And that lingering uncertainty is where the B-2 truly lives. Not in hangars, not on runways, but in the calculations of people who will never see it. Every military system is built on prediction. Prediction of threats. Prediction of timing. Prediction of behavior. The B-2 attacks prediction itself. Because how do you prepare for something When you cannot confirm its presence, cannot track its movement, and cannot estimate its arrival, you don't. You guess. And guessing is not strategy. This is why the B-2 represents a shift away from confrontation and toward penetration without acknowledgement. In older conflicts, power was demonstrated loudly. Bombers roared. Formations filled the sky. Defense systems engaged. The B-2 does none of this. It enters contested airspace silently, operates alone, and leaves without signaling success or failure. Often, the first confirmation comes from the ground, not from radar screens. This reverses the traditional order of warfare. Detection no longer precedes impact. Impact becomes the first signal. That inversion is deeply destabilizing, because it means response always comes too late. Even the pilots themselves experience this separation. Flying the B-2 is not about aggressive control. It is about discipline, long missions, minimal interaction, constant trust in systems that cannot be verified visually. Pilots describe it less like flying a bomber and more like managing a state of invisibility. Every action is measured. Every deviation matters. The aircraft does not forgive improvisation. This creates a different kind of warrior, not one driven by adrenaline, but by patience and restraint. In many ways, the B-2 pilot is closer to a strategist than a traditional aviator. They are executing decisions made far away, long before the aircraft ever leaves the ground. And yet, those decisions carry immediate consequences. The B-2 also exposed a quiet truth about modern warfare. Technology does not replace psychology. It amplifies it. Stealth does not just hide aircraft. It hides intent. And intent is what nations fear most. An enemy can respond to visible threats. They can rally, prepare, negotiate, or escalate. But when intent is concealed, every option feels dangerous. Overreaction risks war. Underreaction risks vulnerability. The B-2 thrives in that narrow space. It does not force action. It forces caution. And caution slows everything. This is why, despite its age, the B-2 remains relevant. Not because it is the most advanced aircraft ever built, but because its philosophy is timeless. Control what the enemy can perceive, and you control how they think. Future aircraft may fly faster. They may carry more payload. They may use unmanned systems or artificial intelligence. But they will all inherit this lesson from the B-2. Visibility is a liability. As long as detection exists, there will be designs meant to defeat it. And as long as uncertainty influences decisions, aircraft like the B-2 will shape the battlefield without ever appearing on it. The B-2 Spirit is often described as a bomber. That label is insufficient. It is a strategic pressure system, a psychological instrument, a reminder that modern war is no longer about overwhelming force, but about controlling what the enemy believes is possible. And once that belief is broken, the rules no longer matter. And that realization changes everything. Because once rules are understood as optional, every system built to enforce them becomes fragile. The B-2 Spirit exists as proof that superiority no longer belongs to the loudest force, the largest fleet, or the fastest interceptor. It belongs to whoever controls perception. In a world obsessed with visibility, the B-2 weaponized invisibility. It turned detection into a liability, reaction into a weakness, preparation into a gamble. This is why no adversary ever truly solved the B-2 problem. You can build better radar. You can deploy more missiles. You can harden targets. But you cannot defend against what you cannot confirm exists. The B-2 does not threaten destruction directly. It threatens irrelevance. It tells every defensive system, you may function perfectly and still fail. And that message echoes far beyond aviation. It reshaped doctrine. It reshaped deterrence. It reshaped how power is calculated in the modern age. After the B-2, secrecy stopped being a temporary advantage. It became a permanent strategic layer. Future aircraft inherited this lesson. So did cyber warfare. So did space systems. So did information warfare itself. The B-2 was never just a bomber. It was a philosophical shift. A shift away from confrontation and towards silent inevitability. A shift away from winning battles and toward ending them before they begin. And perhaps that is the most uncomfortable truth of all. Because if wars can be decided without warning, without escalation, without visibility, then control no longer belongs to those who react fastest. It belongs to those who shape reality quietly. The B-2 spirit flies rarely. It appears even less. Yet its influence is constant. It lives in every unanswered radar return, every unexplained system failure, every plan built on assumptions that no longer hold. It reminds the world that dominance does not need to announce itself. Sometimes the most decisive force is the one that leaves no evidence it was ever there. The B-2 spirit did not just break the rules of bombing. It revealed something far more unsettling, that in modern warfare, the absence of information is the ultimate weapon. And once that weapon exists, the battlefield is never truly empty again. Claro. Vu acrescentar mais 10 linhas. Mantendo o mesmo tom grave. Psicológico e documental. Because once uncertainty becomes permanent, security becomes an illusion. Every shield depends on knowing where to look. Every defense depends on timing. And timing collapses when detection disappears. The B-2 spirit introduced a world where threats do not arrive. They simply manifest. In that world, power is no longer measured by force deployed, but by silence maintained. And as long as aircraft like the B-2 exist, no sky is ever truly clear, no target ever fully safe, and no war ever truly distant.